Hey guys, tonight we slip into something circular, something soft yet structurally sound, and something that smells faintly of sheep. You're on the step. No, not the yoga kind, the vast grassland kind, and the wind never stops. It hisses past your ears and tosses your hair like you owe it money. Before you is a yurt, a squat, round tent that looks like a marshmallow crossed with an igloo. It's warmer inside than out, smarter than it seems, and sneakier in its global influence than your high school world history textbook ever hinted. Oh, and you probably won't survive this environment if you're not born to it, just saying. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is over there. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You crouch low and duck through the felt flap. Instant warmth. The interior glows a muted amber from a hearth in the center. Smoke spirals lazily up through an opening in the roof, called a tuno, which also offers a patch of stars if you're lucky and it's clear. You sit on a rolled up rug, the woven kind with fraying edges, and probably more cultural significance than you're ready for. This yurt isn't just a shelter. It's an idea, a machine for living, and it has no nails. The wooden frame unfolds like a honeycomb, stretching into a perfect circle. Felt walls, made from lovingly abused sheep wool, wrap it like a cozy tortilla. And above you, those radial roof beams called uni reach from the circular crown down to the walls like a wooden sunburst. Here's the wild part. These design choices weren't just about surviving winter winds. They were portable, modular, and flexible long before those were buzzwords. Each yurt could be collapsed and packed onto a camel in under an hour. Not bad for the 12th century, right? As you settle deeper into your borrowed cushion, a few smells drift up. Mutton fat, wood smoke, maybe fermented mare's milk if someone's partying nearby. You shiver once. It's cold outside, and yet, this place hugs you. There's no wasted space, and every part has purpose. The center is sacred. It aligns not just with fire, but with family and cosmos. Beds ring the walls. Storage is stashed low. Even the entrance always faces south, because the north is reserved for spirits and honored guests. Or taxes. Depends on who's coming. And now you realize, this humble structure quietly powered one of the most terrifyingly effective empires in history. The Mongols didn't just ride fast and shoot backward from horses. They also slept well, wherever they went. Historians still argue whether Mongol success came more from brilliant warfare or brilliant logistics. But when your entire home travels with you and sets up in 4 or 5 minutes, yeah, you're gonna win a few battles. Here's your first quirky tidbit. Mongol kids were known to ride goats before they graduated to horses. That's not related to the yurt, but picture that little rodeo for a moment. The fire crackles. You lie back and let your fingers trace the felt seams above. The wind buffets the yurt sides, but the whole thing flexes like a spring. No creaks, no groans, just quiet strength. And you start to wonder, how did this round tent survive millennia? While so many civilizations built towers that fell, you stretch out and let your eyes wander along the interior skeleton of the yurt. This isn't some haphazard teepee with hopes and a few tent poles. No, you're looking at a marvel of vernacular engineering, a design refined by necessity and honed by wind, war, and woolly livestock. It's called a jur in Mongolia, by the way. Yurt is the Russian word that's stuck in English. But here, among the thrum of hooves and hawk cries, you'd better call it by its proper name. The bones of this beast are a genius in disguise. Let's start with the walls, Kana. You run your hand along the crisscrossing wooden lattice, flexible yet firm, like an accordion made by someone who really hated sharp corners. The Kana unfolds from a compact bundle into a circular fence, ready to stand its ground against the wind and the occasional overeager goat. It's the backbone, but it bends. Try getting your brick wall to do that. Each junction in the lattice is tied with rawhide or horsehair. Organic zipties, if you will. This gives the wall elasticity, letting it absorb impacts and pressure without cracking. It's why yurts can survive steppe gales that would reduce a modern tent to sad plastic flapping on the horizon. Now look up. See those slanting roof poles radiating from the central ring? Those are the uni. They sit like sunbeams, linking the wall to the tuno. That wooden circle at the top. There's no central pillar here, just gravity and geometry. The weight of the roof presses the structure downward, while tension bands around the middle, often just thick rope, pull it all together. No screws, no pegs, just balance. Mainstream history fact for the night. This very method, tension and compression holding a freestanding circular structure, was studied by architects across cultures, from the Romans with their domes to modern engineers designing up stadiums. It's not that the Mongols invented the physics. It's that they weaponized it for mobility. And here comes your fringe tidbit. Some anthropologists believe the yurt's circular layout influenced the round plaza designs seen in parts of Central Asia, even centuries later. Not castles, not squares, circles. Maybe people missed sleeping in a jur after too many stone corners. You shift slightly, noticing how quiet it is inside. The felt muffles the outside world, absorbing echoes. This structure breathes. When it rains, the compressed wool swells and seals. When it dries, it opens slightly, venting air. It's breathable insulation with the intelligence of a sponge and the softness of a sheep that's lived a life of questionable choices. Imagine packing all this onto the back of a yak. The lattice folds tight. The roof beams stack like matchsticks. The felt rolls up, thick and heavy. Yes, but manageable. Mongol families could break camp before breakfast and ride off into the mist like nomadic ninjas, their homes bumping along behind them. Historians still argue whether the yurt evolved more from environmental pressures or military need. Was it always this clever, or did centuries of fine-tuning under warlords and emperors shape its perfection? You'll find no blueprints in a dusty library, just oral tradition and endless tinkering. You walk a slow circle inside. Every angle feels deliberate. Beds aren't randomly placed. They face inward, toward the hearth. The man's tools hang on the right. The woman's tools on the left. It's a gendered geometry, even if modern eyes might squint at that. But it works. It's space with meaning. And no, there's no bathroom. You handle that the old-fashioned way, with boots and a willingness to greet the cold. As you tuck your legs under a sheepskin, you can't help but admire how the whole thing is light yet sturdy. It's not the kind of shelter that begs for permanence. It's a partner to motion, and that's its power. See, the yurt isn't just a structure, it's a statement. A rejection of roots in favor of rhythm. It's the architectural equivalent of keeping your suitcase half packed, just in case. And in a world where Mongol riders could cross a continent and still sleep like they were home, that flexibility was lethal. Next time you hear someone brag about their tiny house, tell them Mongol kids were growing up in carbon neutral, climate responsive, culturally encoded microhomes 8 centuries ago. Then smile politely and sip your Arag. You sit in the glow of the hearth now, the yurt's beating heart, where all warmth and attention naturally gathers. Right above you, that circular wooden crown. The tuno lets out the smoke and lets in the stars. It's the ceiling's eye, the roof's nostril, and depending on who you ask, a spiritual compass. The fire below and the opening above, they don't just ventilate, they narrate. Together, they're an axis mundi, tying sky to soil. Your breath puffs in the chill, mixing with the curls of smoke heading upward. The tuno isn't glazed or covered with plastic. It's open when it needs to be, sometimes with slats or a thin cover for weather. But when it's clear, it frames the night like a telescope carved from timber. Through it, you glimpse stars older than every empire the Mongols rolled over, one campfire at a time. In traditional Mongol cosmology, That opening is more than a chimney, it's a passage. Spirits, blessings, dreams, they all travel through that sky hole. And fire, that's sacred. You don't step over it. You don't toss trash in it. You certainly don't joke about it, unless you want a grandmother to appear and smack your soul straight. Mainstream fact time: even in today's Mongolia, the hearth remains a cultural anchor. When families bless a new yurt, they light the first fire before any other ritual. It's how you awaken the space. Fire isn't just heat, it's home. And here's tonight's quirky moment. Some Mongol shamans believe that souls hover above the tuno for days after death. That means the design of your ceiling literally dictates your spirit's travel itinerary. No pressure. You lie back again, eyes fixed upward. Every beam in the roof converges at that ring, like ribs in a vast, upturned ribcage. You're inside something alive. Every element, from lattice to smoke hole, is interdependent. And it's all centered on this moment: warmth, rising, stars watching. You feel the rhythm of the place. Mongol families live in circles, sleep in cycles, eat around the fire. There's no corner to hide in, no hallway to escape to. Everything faces inward. It's a psychology of inclusion. Also sometimes confrontation. In this home, you talk it out or stew in full view. There's nowhere to soak, dramatically with a slammed door. Scholars still argue whether this spatial intimacy helped shape the tightly woven kinship systems among nomads, or did the cultural closeness precede the circular homes? Chicken or jur? No one's sure. But either way, space breeds habit, and this round life leaves an imprint. The sky above shifts. Maybe a snowflake drifts in silent and daring. Maybe a bat flits past. You blink slowly, your thoughts rising with the smoke. That fire below you has probably been burning in some form since before your country even had a name. One practical note: smoke from the hearth doesn't billow and choke you out because the yurt breathes. The felts are layered strategically, overlapping to draw air in low and vent it high. This isn't just spiritual airflow, it's legit ventilation science. Primitive? No. Perfected. And when it storms, when wind howls and thunder flinches across the plains, you curl up beneath that open eye in the roof and trust, because it's been tested longer than most cathedrals. Outside, horses shift, a dog barks once and goes quiet. Inside, the fire crackles, the felt walls sigh, and the tuno stares upward, unwavering. Here, under this opening, you feel smaller, but not alone. It's a quiet knowing. A reminder that shelter doesn't have to be square, and connection doesn't always need Wi-Fi. Just fire and a hole in the roof. Morning. Not the loud, alarm blaring kind. No, this one slips in on padded hooves and cold light. You sit up, rub the sleep from your eyes, and already the yurt is waking too. Somewhere nearby, a kettle clinks onto a stove. A horse snorts outside. And inside this soft, walled world, there's a gentle chaos unfolding. Because today, it's time to move. You'd think disassembling a home would involve cranes, permits, maybe a breakdown or two. But here on the step, your hosts do it with the same focus you use to pack a suitcase. If your suitcase were 30 sheep's worth of felt and 3 trees of timber. First, out come the belongings: rugs, chests, cooking tools, sacred bundles. Each has its place, like Tetris but with heritage. Then, the hearth is carefully extinguished, its embers stored or buried with reverence. You don't just snuff fire like it's a candle at a dinner party, you thank it. Seriously. The felt covers, thick, heavy, and well-worn, are peeled back and rolled. It takes muscle and rhythm, but Mongol families have done this so often, it's like watching a dance. The roof beams come next. Each uni is detached from the crown ring one by one, stacked like firewood. The ring itself is lowered gently. Drop in it. Bad luck. Potential ancestor, scowling levels of bad. Then, the walls. That glorious lattice collapses inward, folding like a concertina. What took up several meters of circular majesty now leans in a manageable bundle. Your entire house has just become portable. And it's not even lunchtime. Mainstream history check. Mongol families could pack their homes in under an hour. That speed wasn't just for bragging rights, it was survival. When the herd moved, so did you. When danger approached or pasture called, you didn't stay and debate. You loaded the camels and rode. Now here's your strange little gem for the day. The traditional method for attaching the felt covers used horsehair ropes braided by grandmothers who would chant softly as they worked. It said the rhythm helped the knots hold better. Science or superstition. Historians still argue whether this was just habit or if the vibrations really mattered. Either way, your grandma's knitting club just got one up out by the animals. A pair of Bactrian camels blink at you with disapproval. It's their job to carry the home today? They grunt. You grunt back. It's a whole conversation. And now, everything's tied down. The lattice secured. The beams wrapped. The felt covers loaded. Even the central crown ring rides high, cradled like royalty. You climb up on your horse, or goat, if you're a kid still working your way up. And off you go. A new patch of grass, a new view of the horizon. Same sky hole, same fire, just relocated. You glance back once. The campsite that felt like a rooted village an hour ago is bare. No trash. No trace. Just wind smoothing the grass again. It's a weird sensation, this contradiction of home and impermanence. You lived there. You slept there. It held heat, stories, and tea. And now it's gone, riding away with you, like the world's most committed backpack. This is the heart of nomadic architecture. Not permanence. Not monumentality. Portability. The belief that home follows you, not the other way around. And it's not just romanticism. This design meant Mongol families could shift with the seasons, avoid floods, chase herds, or just follow better weather. Flexibility wasn't optional, it was survival. You look around at the open plain. No streets, no fences, just an infinite carpet of green. The sun is rising higher, and the yurt, your yurt, is somewhere on a camel's back, trotting along like it does this every Tuesday. You breathe deep. Smoke and milk, cold wind and warm wool. The day begins again, and so does the journey. The grasslands blur beneath hooves, and you're riding with the caravan now. Behind you, the sun casts long shadows from the bulging backs of camels. In front, nothing but endless steppe, a ribbon of horizon and the occasional flicker of a distant rider. And somewhere in the bustle of this mobile life, a plan is unfolding, not just a move to greener pastures, but to conquest. You might not know it yet, but you're in the early stages of the most terrifyingly efficient logistics machine the medieval world ever saw. And at the heart of it, yurts. Glorious, stumpy, mobile yurts. Meet Chinggis Khan, Temujin to his friends and childhood rivals he later obliterated. While most empires trudged with ox carts and tents that collapsed if someone sneezed too hard, the Mongols packed their homes onto animals and stayed rested, fed, and frightening. You think modern armies have it figured out? Try conquering Eurasia while sleeping in a warm, felt, covered circle that sets up in 45 minutes. Historians often rave about Mongol cavalry, their composite bows, their brutal speed, but they sometimes skip the cozy infrastructure undergirding all that destruction. Because what's a blitzkrieg without a nap? The yurt made it possible for Mongol forces to move entire populations at frightening speed. Wives, children, elders, all coming along. This wasn't an army disconnected from its roots. It was the roots, galloping. Mainstream fact time during Chinggis Khan's reign, the Mongols maintained entire mobile headquarters, massive encampments with hundreds of yurts, arranged in specific formations, mirroring military hierarchy. These weren't random up towns. They were rolling cities, and everyone knew their place. Quirky tidbit, some commanders even had specially designated yurts just for falcons. Yes, falcon yurts. Because when you've conquered most of Asia, your birds deserve private quarters too. You ride through one such moving base now, and it's a marvel of organization. Yurts by rank, the Khan's towering golden yurt dead center. Cooking smoke spirals gently skyward, and children run between felt walls like they own the place. Because honestly, they kinda do. Everything about this design enables motion. A sedentary army gets bogged down. A mobile one sweeps the map like wind. With yurts, Mongol troops didn't have to return to supply lines. They were the supply lines. Home followed them. Comfort wasn't left behind. It rode beside them, in rhythm with the war drums. There's even a system to how yurts are pitched in a camp. The Khan's yurt faced south. High-ranking officers were placed to the east or west, depending on role and clan. This layout was so consistent that enemy spies, when they weren't being executed in imaginative ways, could often sketch the whole hierarchy just by counting felt domes. And here's something historians still debate: whether this level of mobile organization influenced later empires like the Ottomans, who adopted similar field camp arrangements centuries later. Inspiration? Coincidence? Or just the Mongol aftershock still rippling through history? The steppe wind picks up, flapping loose felt, on a passing yurt being prepped for setup. You glance over at its curved beams, the efficient folding lattice, and the shaggy horse munching near its tether. It doesn't look like war. It looks like someone's living room. But when multiplied by thousands, these yurts became the soft, skinned heart of a steel-clad force. Later that night, as the stars spread above, and the yurts glow softly with firelight, you understand something crucial. The Mongol war machine wasn't just powered by horses or tactics. It was powered by comfort, stability, and portable community. While enemies huddled in drafty tents or overextended castles, Mongols made tea, played music, and waited for dawn. You lie in your own yurt again now, rebuilt with the same efficiency. The fire pops. Outside, a patrol rides by, their voices low and calm. Inside, your gear is dry, your bed is warm, and your home is ready to move at sunrise. Tomorrow, the empire rolls forward. But tonight, you rest in a tent that conquered continents. The morning sun doesn't so much rise as it blazes. Hard light, flat horizon, everything crisp and cruelly honest. You squint through it from the saddle of your horse, riding alongside an elite unit in the Mongol ranks. No chaos, no confusion. Just seamless coordination, and all of it strangely mirrored by tents. See, the deeper you ride into Mongol logistics, the clearer it gets. The architecture of the yurt wasn't just for comfort. It was command structure. Temujin, who you'd now better call Chinggis Khan unless you want history to erase you, built his empire not just on horseback, but on order. And that order was reflected in the layout, design, and even placement of yurts. A tent wasn't just a tent. It was a badge of rank, a data point, a line in a giant mobile spreadsheet drawn on the land. Let's start with something almost hilarious in its precision. Yurts weren't plopped down randomly. They followed a strict code of spatial hierarchy. Chinggis's own was always in the center, facing south. To his right, the west, sat his most trusted advisors and warriors. To the left, the east, his administrative elite. Everyone else followed outward by descending importance. Even the cook knew where to pitch. Mainstream historical note: Mongol field camps, or Ordu. Yep, that's where we get the word hoarded. Were so orderly that they influenced the organization of later military camps across Asia and parts of Eastern Europe. Armies suddenly realized that maybe, just maybe, being able to find your commander without asking 5 confused soldiers and a sheep might be helpful, but it goes deeper. Each yurt had a symbolic layout inside. Tools and weapons always hung on the right. Religious items and ceremonial objects were placed on the left. The rear of the yurt, opposite the door, was the most sacred space, often reserved for honored guests, family elders, or sometimes Chinggis himself when he dropped by unannounced, which was either thrilling or terrifying, depending on your livestock situation. Historians still argue whether this yurt-based order influenced the way Temujin conceived his entire empire. As a circular, centralized power structure with everyone in orbit around the Khan. It's possible. After all, the man built his legacy with terrifying logic. No wasted space. No wasted movement. Here's a juicy fringe fact: Chinggis, reportedly had a mobile court of over 100 yurts, including a traveling record office, ceremonial tents, and even what might generously be called an early HR department, the kind that asked less about grievances and more about loyalty oaths. This court moved with him like a felt-wrapped cruise ship on horseback. As you ride past the command tent, larger, more ornate, with gilded felt edges, you notice that even the way it's tied reflects its purpose. More rope, double stakes, reinforced beams, because when your decisions impact the trajectory of Eurasia, your roof better stay on during a windstorm. And here's your quirky tidbit for the day. Some high-ranking Mongol yurts had door flaps with horsehair tassels dyed specific colors to indicate the occupant's role. Blue for messengers, red for guards, black for spiritual advisors. It's a color-coded post, it's but more mobile and way hairier. You dismount and enter one of the mid-tier command yurts. Inside, it's a buzzing nerve center. Maps drawn on bark, leather, bound scrolls with tribal rosters, and a man counting arrows without looking up. The walls are hung with bows and armor, but also charms, family tokens, even a miniature fiddle. This isn't just a workspace. It's a home, one where war is planned beside a steaming bowl of goat stew. The smell hits you, sharp, gamey, and strangely comforting. Mongols believed in fighting hard, but eating well. The yurt let them do both. Shelter, strategy, sustenance. Repeat, you step back outside. The wind has picked up, flapping a nearby felt panel. A line of soldiers walks past, each carrying a beam or a rope. A yurt is going up. You pause to watch. It rises with the same logic you've now seen echoed across a continent of conquest. From a distance, the camp looks like a city without walls. But come closer, and it's a machine, geometric, disciplined, strangely beautiful, like a hive that breathes, sleeps, and rolls away without a trace. And you realize, in Chinggis Khan's world, even the tents marched in formation. Night returns, but this time you don't bed down in a modest, wool, scratched yurt tucked against a camel. No, tonight you approach something bigger, grander. It's lit from within like a paper lantern, shimmering gold at the edges, pulsing with the hush of importance. You've reached the Golden Jur, the imperial yurt of the Khan himself. And no, this isn't a tourist exaggeration. The Golden Jur was real. Chinggis Khan and his successors traveled with a palace on stilts and felt. This wasn't just a step home, it was a throne room that moved. As you approach, the first thing you notice is the size. It's enormous. Twice, maybe 3 times the diameter of a normal family yurt. Reinforced beams, more ornate carvings, and felt dyed with precious minerals give it an otherworldly glow. The smoke hole above is rimmed in copper, designed to glint like a celestial crown when the fire burns high. Mainstream fact: Ugadai Khan, Chinggis's son, ruled large swaths of the Mongol Empire from inside such a jur. The Chinese even recorded it with suspicion and awe, describing it as a golden tent upon wagons. Like a divine command center on wheels, he didn't need a palace of stone, he had something better. It could follow him into any conquest and host envoys from half the known world. You're ushered inside by 2 guards in fox fur hats. The floor is covered in lush rugs, the kind you'd expect in a sultan's palace. Silk banners dangle from the crossbeams. A low dais sits at the far end, framed by bronze incense burners. Behind it, a painted chest, and flanking it, 2 falcons, tethered but watchful, probably judging your posture. This isn't just opulence for show, it's political theater. A place to receive diplomats, to intimidate rival khans, to project the kind of mobile majesty that says, yes, my capital has hooves, and it's faster than yours. Quirky tidbit. Some reports suggest that musicians traveled with the imperial yurt and would perform lullabies or ceremonial songs inside. Imagine holding court to the dulcet tones of a 2-stringed fiddle while sipping fermented mare's milk in an oversized felt room. It's a vibe, but it wasn't just about style. It was deeply strategic. The Golden Jur served as a symbol of continuity. As the Mongols swept through Asia, the yurt was a constant, Kings came and went, battlefields shifted. But the Khan's yurt stayed the same. It was recognizable, dependable, and, like all good political symbols, absolutely dripping in coded meaning. Historians still argue whether this mobile court influenced later wagon palaces, used by Central Asian rulers, or even the military tents of Ottoman sultans. Was it all borrowed? Paralleled? Or just a really good idea copied by everyone who saw it? You walk the perimeter slowly, running your hand along intricate leather inlays on the felt. The smell of incense clings to the fabric, along with that ever-present trace of wood smoke and old wool. The beams above your head aren't just functional. They're carved with floral motifs and coiled dragons. A nod, perhaps, to the Chinese artisans brought in to decorate the Khan's living space. At night, when the camp grows still and the steppe whispers, the golden jar glows faintly. A soft hum in the dark. You lie near it, staring at the stars through your own modest smoke hole, thinking about the contrast. Same structure, same principles. But one house is warriors, the other an empire. This is the beauty of the yurt's design. It scales. From the humblest shepherd to the great Khan, it adapts. It molds itself to power, or to poverty, and always with the same circular grace. And when the empire moves again, the golden jur will fold up like the rest, packed carefully, carried by oxen or camels, rebuilt at the next stop. It won't leave a scar on the land, just memories, like a dream made of wool and order. You roll over in your own yurt, listening to the soft sounds of wind brushing against felt. The imperial yurt looms not far away, vast and majestic, and yet temporary, just like everything else out here. Except the sky, and maybe the yurt itself. You're on the move again, this time not with a war band, but with a caravan. Hooves clop softly against the dirt. Bells jingle on camel harnesses. Silk flutters against wool. You're tracing the invisible threads of the silk roads, and along those threads, yurts pop up like mushrooms after a storm. It's not just Mongols anymore. The entire trade network, spanning from China to the Mediterranean, is breathing in the yurt's influence. You see it in the camps that sprout around trading hubs, in the textiles hung to dry between felt walls, in the quiet knowledge passed from one round home to the next. This is how you live well on the move. Mainstream historical note: as the Mongol Empire expanded, it brought a kind of rough and tumble stability to vast stretches of Eurasia. Historians call it the Pax Mongolica. Under that itchy woolen peace, trade boomed. Marco Polo zipped across Asia like a tourist with decent GPS, and merchants of every stripe followed routes now guarded by bow-wielding steppe men who just wanted your taxes and maybe a snack. And along those routes, yurts. Yurts for families, yurts for traders, yurts for itinerant blacksmiths and perfumers, and even Mongol postal workers. The jur became both home and outpost, inn and customs booth, temple and tea house. You arrive at one of these roadside yurt settlements. Imagine a strip mall, but circular, low, and smelling of curry and goat. It's buzzing. There's a yurt with fresh silk for sale, another with cured fish, and another with a man promising magical charms carved from deer antler. Whether or not they work is unclear, but he does have excellent eyebrows. The felt walls ripple gently in the breeze, dyed with patterns you've never seen before. Designs borrowed from Persia, India, and China. Cross-pollination at its finest. And inside, the goods aren't just displayed, they're experienced. You sip spiced tea on a yak hide cushion while a trader from Samarkand tells you that his father also slept in a yurt, though his was taller and had windows. Windows? You try not to look scandalized. Here's a quirky little detail for you. Some yurt dwellers along the Silk Road began incorporating silk linings into their interiors, not just for beauty, but because it helped repel insects. Practicality meets luxury. And yes, historians still argue whether the silk and wool combo was invented by trade-savvy nomads or copied from urban palaces. Either way, your butt has never felt so swanky. But it's not just about decor. The yurt's influence creeps into sleeping habits. In sedentary homes along the trade routes, Circular rooms begin to appear. Floor seating becomes popular. People stop dividing space so rigidly. Living, sleeping, dining, all in one fluid motion, like the Jur taught them to be a bit more spherical. And textiles. Oh, the textiles. Yurt makers become some of the region's most sought after weavers. That compressed wool technique. Perfect for making weatherproof cloaks and saddle pads. Even Tibetan monks start using Mongol-style felting methods for their meditation mats. Sit, breathe, don't freeze. You wander into a yurt that serves as a kind of international lounge. Cushions from Baghdad, incense from Sian, a cat that looks like it owns the place. The host offers dried apricots and news bandits on the pass to Bukhara, a marriage between two merchant houses, a rumor that the Khan himself drinks tea flavored with saffron now. Luxury evolves, but the tent stays the same. Historians still debate just how far Mongol yurt culture influenced sedentary architecture. Did Persian tents adopt Mongol structure? Did Chinese circular compounds, like the Tulo, borrow anything from the Jur? The timelines blur. Ideas get shared, reinvented. But what's clear is this: the yurt wasn't just dragged along the Silk Roads, it shaped them. It offered space, warmth, and welcome in places where no stone inn dared stand. It taught travelers that home didn't have to be fixed. It could unfold, breathe, and close again, like a flower chasing sun. As the evening cools and traders shuffle inside their felt cocoons, you sit by a shared fire, clutching a teacup warm against your fingers. Around you, the yurts glow like lanterns. Each one is different, each one the same. You're halfway across a continent, and somehow, still home. You wake to the sound of hoofbeats and hammers. But this isn't another yurt camp. This is different. Across the field, stone towers loom like awkward giants. Flags flutter from battlements. The smell of damp stone and cold iron wafts across the grass. You've arrived at a European castle, and you're not impressed. Okay, sure, it's big. Lots of crenellations. Walls thick enough to stop a small war. But let's talk about comfort. You step inside, and it's chilly. The kind of damp cold that sinks into your bones and makes your teeth feel like they've aged 5 years. You rub your arms, thinking longingly of sheep-warmed felt. Inside, there's grandeur, yes. Tapestries, suits of armor, grand staircases. But the draft? It's everywhere. You pass under a stone arch and see a fire sputtering in a massive hearth, doing its best to warm the entire room. Spoiler, it fails. Now, for your mainstream historical nugget castles, especially in the medieval period, were symbols of feudal power and defense. Their stone was meant to resist siege, not coddle residents. And while that stone could take a battering from a catapult, it did almost nothing to retain heat. No insulation, no flexibility, no chance of being rolled up and taken to a sunnier spot. Meanwhile, back on the steppe, yurts offered consistent warmth. Felt walls trapped heat. Central fires were efficient. And because the entire space was low and round, it was easy to heat evenly. You'd never find a corner you could see your breath in. Now here's your delightful quirky fact. Mongol yurts used layers of felt like a cake. Interior, exterior, and sometimes a middle quilted one in extreme cold. The result? A kind of medieval triple pane window effect. Some accounts suggest it could be 20 degrees C warmer inside a jur than outside, even during brutal Mongolian winters. So you do the math. Castle gorgeous, drafty, immobile. Yurt cozy, efficient, moves when your goats do. As you explore further into the castle, you realize something else. It's hierarchical in a way that feels rigid. Lords above, servants below, with locked doors and spiraling stairs to prove it. In a yurt, even if the Khan's in the back seat of power, the circle brings everyone closer. It's intimate. It's spatially democratic, with a dash of authoritarian presence, sure, but still cozier than stone. You pass a stone chapel with stained glass. Beautiful, but you wonder, how would this have fared during a Mongol campaign? Answer, not well. The Mongols could strike fast, sleep warm, and vanish before a castle's drawbridge even creaked open. Historians still argue whether The superiority of Yurt logistics played a bigger role in Mongol military dominance than their weaponry. Some say it was the horses. Others point to the psychological edge. Knowing your enemies were sleeping poorly while you roasted meat in your circular fleece wrapped wonder. You sit for a meal in the castle's great hall. Boar, bread, cheese. Everything is delicious, but the draft makes your soup cool faster than your patience. You glance at the ceiling. Stone beams, soot streaked, no smoke hole, just smoke, stained regret. By evening, you're huddled near the hearth again, envying the Mongol practice of hanging rugs on the inside of yurts for extra insulation. Castle walls don't hug you back, they echo. They leak wind. They smell of old battle and wet limestone. Outside, the stars are sharp in the cold night air. You picture a yurt not far away. Its felt soft, its roof ring open to the heavens, its fire humming warmly. You're not saying castles are bad. They have their place. But when it comes to sleeping soundly during a windstorm, you'll take round over rectangle any day. You wrap your cloak tighter. The stone is unforgiving, but the comparison is clear. In one hand, you have fortress thinking, defend, endure, control. In the other, flexibility, adapt, move, respond. And tonight, only one has warm toes. You awaken to the gentle rustle of canvas and the soft murmur of voices. The yurt around you breathes with life, its felt walls glowing in the morning light. As you step outside, the vast expanse of the steppe stretches before you, dotted with yurts of varying sizes and colors. It's a living tapestry of tradition and innovation, where ancient designs meet modern needs. In the distance, a group of children plays near a yurt adorned with solar panels. Nearby, another yurt boasts a satellite dish, connecting its inhabitants to the wider world. The juxtaposition is striking: centuries-old structures equipped with 21st century technology. This is the evolution of the yurt, a symbol of adaptability and resilience. Mainstream historical note: the yurt, or jur as it's known in Mongolia, has been a cornerstone of nomadic life for over 3,000 years. Its design, characterized by a circular wooden frame covered with felt, is both practical and symbolic. The circular shape resists strong winds from any direction, and the central opening, or tunnel, allows for ventilation and light. National Geographic education. As you wander through the camp, you notice a yurt with intricate carvings on its wooden door. The patterns tell stories of ancestors, battles, and spiritual beliefs. Inside, the layout is familiar: the hearth at the center, beds are ranged around the perimeter, and family heirlooms displayed with pride. Yet, there's a modern twist. A small refrigerator hums quietly in the corner, and LED lights illuminate the space. Quirky tidbit: in some Mongolian communities, yurts have been adapted into mobile classrooms and clinics, bringing education and health care to remote areas. These innovative uses showcase the yurt's versatility and its continued relevance in contemporary society. You sit down with an elder who shares tales of how the yurt has changed over the decades. He speaks of the introduction of new materials, like waterproof canvas and insulated linings, which have made yurts more comfortable and durable. He also mentions the growing popularity of yurts in urban areas, where they're used as cafes, guest houses, and even art studios. Historians still argue whether the modern adaptations of the yurt dilute its cultural significance or represent a natural evolution of tradition. Some purists believe that incorporating modern amenities compromises the yurt's authenticity, while others see it as a testament to the structure's enduring utility and relevance. As the day progresses, you join a workshop where locals demonstrate how to assemble a yurt. The process is a communal effort, with each person playing a role. The lattice walls unfold like an accordion, the roof poles are carefully positioned, and the felt coverings are secured with ropes. Within a few hours, a new home stands ready to welcome its inhabitants. You reflect on the yurt's journey, from a nomadic shelter to a symbol of sustainable living embraced worldwide. Its design principles have inspired architects and designers seeking eco-friendly and efficient housing solutions. The yurt's emphasis on harmony with nature, minimal environmental impact, and community-oriented spaces resonates with modern sensibilities. As night falls, you return to your yurt, its interior now warmed by a small stove. The stars twinkle through the tonneau, and the sounds of laughter and music drift through the air. In this blend of old and new, the yurt continues to be a sanctuary, a place where stories are shared, traditions are honored, and life unfolds in a circle of continuity. You wake to the sound of a yak bell and the clink of a teacup. Not in Mongolia this time, but in the thin air of Tibet. The high plateau stretches out before you, framed by snow-dusted peaks. And there it is again, that unmistakable silhouette: round walls, peaked roof, felted curves. Only this isn't quite the Mongol Yurt you've grown used to. It's taller, sometimes whitewashed, and it goes by a different name. Still, the bones are familiar. Welcome to the extended family of yurts, the global cousins. Here in Tibet, nomadic herders have their own version of the portable tent home, often called a bai or simply black tent. These structures use yak wool instead of sheep felt, and their coloring lives up to the name: a rich, dark, sun-absorbing. The frame is simpler, the pitch steeper, but the philosophy identical. Shelter that moves, warmth without waste, home that comes with you. Mainstream fact for this leg of your journey: a black yak hair tents have been used for at least 1,000 years in the Himalayan region. They're lighter than jurs, better suited to pack animals that need to scale cliffs as much as they cross plains. The material? It breathes, sheds rain, and smells like every yak that ever lived. Efficient. Pungent? Perfect. You duck inside one, and it's like entering a tea-scented cavern. Butter lamps flicker. Prayer flags flutter above the door. The stove is central, like in a jur. But here it burns dung, dried and stacked neatly in a corner. You learn quickly not to wrinkle your nose. Everything is fuel out here. And here's a quirky tidbit. The black tent's fabric is woven loose, but swells shut when wet, creating a natural seal. It's like the textile version of someone who only works when stressed. Uncooperative until pressure hits, and then suddenly brilliant. From Tibet, you head west and slightly south, following ancient trade routes and bird flight, until you hit Turkey's highland pastures. And again, there it is. Not a yurt, not a jur, but a seater. Turkish nomads, the Yarokes, have long used tent structures with circular logic. They're more conical, pitched high, often with decorative elements embroidered by hand. But again, the mobility, the central hearth, the wind, savvy geometry, it's all in the family. In fact, historians still argue whether the Turkish tent tradition descended from earlier Central Asian yurts brought west by migrating Turkic peoples, or whether it evolved in parallel. Either way, the lineage is clear when you see round, low, soft, walled shelters. You're probably looking at someone's ancient innovation dressed for a different climate. You sip tea inside a Turkish nomad tent, this time flavored with cardamom. Rugs are thicker here. The embroidery is dazzling. Abstract motifs and stylized animals woven in hot reds and deep blues. You notice how the space is laid out in almost the same way: men's tools on one side, women's kitchenware on the other, with the most honored spot reserved for guests and gods. Even in regions where square houses dominate, the round tent persists. You hear whispers of similar structures in Kyrgyzstan, Sazabozu-Kiev, in Kazakhstan, Kizyu, even in Hungary, where ancient Magyar tribes once favored tents before settling into cities. The design echoes outward like a ripple in history. And here's a strange little fringe note. Some anthropologists have speculated that these circular, portable dwellings may have influenced the shape of certain religious spaces, tent sanctuaries, round temples, even the circular stone foundations found in prehistoric Europe. Coincidence? Cultural diffusion? The evidence is murky, the debate ongoing. You pause at the edge of a high pasture, gazing down at a small, nomadic settlement, 3 tents clustered like mushrooms, smoke rising from each. A boy runs past, chasing a chicken. A woman waves. A dog barks but doesn't bother chasing you. You're clearly just another yurt tourist. But you feel it deep in your bones, the continuity. Across time and space, cultures who needed to move, to survive the wind, to feed and warm their families without staking themselves to stone, all came to the same conclusion: soft walls, round spaces, fire at the center, and sky above. You inhale cold air. There's smoke in it. A hint of stew. Somewhere between Tibet and Turkey, between past and present, the circle holds. You blink, and suddenly you're not on a windswept steppe or a mountain plateau. There's a Subaru parked nearby, a barista tent. Someone's playing ukulele by a solar-powered lantern. Welcome to Oregon, and smack in the middle of this pine-shaded clearing, a yurt, not a metaphorical one, a real round, wooden, floored, vinyl-skinned yurt, complete with fire pit, bunk beds, and a composting toilet within 10 feet. You've entered the 20th century afterlife of the Mongol Yurt hippie edition. It's weird, right? That a structure born of necessity, perfected by goat, herders, and world conquerors, has become the darling of glampers, eco-resorts, and Pacific Northwest architecture students. But here it is, and it all started with a few oddballs and a lot of wool. Mainstream historical nugget in the 1970s, American counterculture communities, particularly in Oregon and Northern California, started looking for alternative housing that was cheap, sustainable, and didn't annoy the squirrels. Enter the yurt. Its circular efficiency and easy assembly made it perfect for communes, retreats, and the early green living movement. Architect and environmentalist Bill Copperthwaite helped popularize the yurt in the U.S. by adapting its core design with local materials, wood lattice walls, canvas outer layers, and plexiglass domes instead of smoke holes. Suddenly, yurts were sprouting up everywhere from backyards to yoga centers. You walk into one now. It smells like cedar and essential oils. There's a hand-woven rug, some DIY shelving, and a tiny library of books with titles like Wild, Fermentation, and Zen, and the Art of Compost Toilets. A cat dozes near the stove. A guy named Sage offers you turmeric tea. And here comes your quirky tidbit. In the 1980s, NASA studied yurt design for possible use in lunar or Martian habitats. The idea was that a self-supporting round, tension-based structure could be ideal for extraterrestrial living, lightweight, resilient, and cozy, even on the moon. Imagine Armstrong kicking back in a jar with tang and freeze-dried mutton. As you poke around the yurt structure, it's all familiar. The circular frame, the radial roof beams, the central dome, now a skylight that leaks Instagram likes during golden hour. It's been modernized, sure, but the bones are unmistakably Mongol. Historians still argue whether this Western adoption is appreciation, appropriation, or something in between. But even the most skeptical scholars admit few other forms have traveled this far, changed this little, and remained this beloved. When something works, it works. You step outside and stroll through a forest yurt village. One is painted with murals. Another has solar panels. A third is under construction. Its lattice spread out like a wooden ribcage, waiting for walls. A couple in flannel discusses vapor barriers, while their dog chews a stick shaped like Idaho. And just like back on the steppe. These yurts aren't just shelter. They're philosophy. Space that reflects values minimalism. Circular living, connection to nature. Okay, and maybe a Bluetooth speaker. But still, later, at a community fire circle, you listen to people trade stories about wild mushrooms, forest bathing, and how the roundness of a yurt makes arguments harder to sustain. No corners to sulk in. One woman says, sipping something fermented. You laugh. She's not wrong. You think back to that Mongol commander warming his hands over a central hearth, his tent ringed with armor and scrolls. You imagine he'd be confused by the lack of falcons here, but he'd recognize the shape? The smoke hole. The way it all comes together, breathes, and holds. It's not the same yurt, of course. The materials are new, the context changed. But the DNA, that's ancient. You can feel it in the warmth. In the way your footsteps echo slightly off the curved walls, in the stillness the circle brings. So whether you're a goat herder a warlord, or a Portland barista, the yurt meets you halfway. It says, let's not stay forever, but let's be comfortable while we're here. And you think, yes, that sounds just right. You're on a construction site now. But it's oddly quiet. No jackhammers. No rebar forests. Just a few workers sliding interlocking panels together like a giant puzzle. No concrete, no cranes. Just click, snap, done. It's a prefab housing unit, and somehow it feels familiar. Look at the structure again, it's round. Ish. Modular. Designed for mobility. If you blink, could it be? Are you seeing the ghost of a Mongol yurt in the bones of a 21st century flat pack building?
Yes, you are.
See, the modern push toward minimalist, flexible architecture didn't emerge in a vacuum. Designers have been peeking sideways at the Yurt for decades, fascinated by its efficiency. And now, in a world hungry for sustainability and speed, yurt logic is quietly taking over. Mainstream fact, today's prefab housing movement, especially in disaster relief, remote workstations, and temporary eco-lodging, borrows heavily from yurt design principles. Round layouts are back. Panel-based construction is standard. And tension, compression systems. Designers are drooling over them. You step inside a partially completed unit. The interior rings with a soft acoustic bounce. Wood, fabric, breathable insulation. It's not felt, but it echoes the same circular flow. Rooms wrap around a central skylight. Walls curve. Corners are suspiciously rare. And here's your fringe, but fabulous detailage. Japanese architect Kengo Kuma once referenced yurt philosophy in his designs for lightweight, mobile shelters after natural disasters. His goal? Build homes that people can erect themselves with no tools, carry in parts, and live in with dignity. Sound familiar? Across the field, another team assembles a dome-shaped dwelling for a humanitarian aid project. The design was inspired by traditional nomadic architecture from Central Asia. That means yurts. Or more specifically, the IKEA version of a yurt, flat, packed, labeled, emotionally humbling, but ultimately genius. Quirky tidbit. There's a company in the Netherlands producing yurt-inspired, tiny homes with zippered wall panels and modular furniture. One customer claimed living in the round helped them stop losing their phone so much. It's unclear whether that's spiritual or just ergonomic. And let's talk logistics. In Mongolia, a family can disassemble a yurt, pack it on 2 camels, and rebuild it before dinner. Today's prefab teams aim for the same portability, low waste, minimal foundation. It's architecture with a backpack. Mongols were doing this 8 centuries ago. With goats. Historians still debate how directly modern prefab designers were influenced by traditional yurts. Some trace it through cultural diffusion, others say it's convergent evolution. Different people arriving at similar solutions. But the resemblance is uncanny, and it's growing. You pause to watch a young architect sketch a new design. Her tablet glows with lines that curve and radiate. She talks about airflow, energy conservation, thermal performance, all buzzwords with ancient roots. It's basically Mongol tech with bamboo and solar panels, she jokes. And she's not wrong. Nearby, a finished structure awaits its future inhabitants. It's warm, circular, modest. It doesn't shout wealth or permanence. It says, I'm here for now. Let's make this good. It's a house that understands impermanence and values comfort anyway. As twilight falls, solar-powered lanterns glow under a curved roof. You sit on a low bench, legs tucked, the space somehow familiar despite all the modern trappings. There's no fire pit in the middle, no felt walls. But you feel that same centered calm, that psychological ease that round spaces offer, like being cradled instead of cornered. And that's the thing. The yurt wasn't just shelter. It was a worldview, one where everything radiates from the middle. Light, warmth, conversation, family. Now, in a prefab kit sold globally, that worldview still lingers. So next time you see a pop-up glamping hut or an emergency relief pod, look twice. There might be a little Mongol DNA under the screws and rivets, because the step moves on. But its ideas, they stay packed, portable, and ready for the next build. You're not walking in a yurt right now. You're walking through ideas shaped by one. A modern museum in Tokyo. A therapist's office in Helsinki. A kindergarten in Canada with a round classroom where kids sit in a circle and pass stories like they're trading secrets. None of them look like yurts. But look again. The curves, the absence of hard corners, the way people gather, facing each other, drawn inward. It's all there. Echoes of the step, refracted through drywall and glass. This is circular thinking. Not just as a design feature, but as a worldview. You step into a meditation dome tucked in a wooded clearing. There's no altar, no furniture. Just space, open, even. A woman across the circle gives a small nod as you enter. Her voice is soft. Just sit anywhere. The room knows how to hold you. Weird, but not wrong. Mainstream architectural fact: humans tend to feel safer and more relaxed in round environments. Studies show lower cortisol levels, improved focus, and more communal behavior in circular spaces compared to rectangles. Blame our cave-dwelling ancestors, or just admit that the Jur got it right before neuroscience did. And here's a quirky details: some Mongol shamans believe that circles trap bad spirits. That in a round room, there are no corners for evil to lurk, no shadows that cling. This belief traveled. You find echoes of it in Feng Shui, in Celtic stone circles, in round African huts and Navajo hogans. In a yurt, everything radiates from the center. Fire, light, heat, conversation. No one hides. No one dominates the head of the table. There is no table, just shared warmth, space, and eye contact. You sit now in a round library, a quiet experiment in acoustic design. The bookshelves curve, the ceiling domes. A child reads aloud to a therapy dog, and the sound carries gently, evenly. No echoes, no sharp angles, just story suspended in space. Designers call this biophilic architecture, building spaces that connect us to nature, to organic forms. Circles are everywhere in nature: nests, ripples, eyes, planets. The yurt, they say, was just our first attempt to mimic those forms. A step-sized love letter to the logic of the earth. Historians still argue whether Mongol spiritual beliefs shaped the circular yurt, or whether the design's function later gained spiritual overlay. But does it matter? When form fits function and feeds the soul, that's design alchemy. You walk now through an artist's studio. It's round, naturally. Easels ring the room, skylight overhead, and not a single person has their back to anyone else. They say it fosters creativity. That ideas bounce better in circles. You're not sure. But the energy? It's definitely different. Later, in a grief support group, the same logic holds. No podium, no rows, just a ring of chairs, knees almost touching. One woman says, "It feels like we're holding each other without touching." Someone nods. No one corrects her. The absence of corners doesn't just soften the walls. It softens us. You can't stake out a personal zone in a circle. You join. You lean in, or you don't. But either way, you're part of it. And now for a delightful micro detail in Feng Shui: round spaces are believed to allow qi, life energy, to flow uninterrupted. Some modern Chinese apartment complexes are now incorporating round communal areas, citing both science and superstition. The yurt, quietly, has joined the wellness industrial complex. You sit under a small dome now, a temporary pavilion for poetry readings. The air is thick with words. You realize that you've been tracing an invisible circle this whole time, from Mongolia to mindfulness centers, from shamans to child psychologists. The yurt isn't just architecture anymore. It's metaphor. It's model. It's method. And when the fire burns at the center, when voices rise in a ring, when you feel that quiet gravitational pull inward, you're not just inside a space. You're inside a memory of how we were meant to live. The air is crisp again. Morning, yes, but not the energetic bootstrap kind. This one floats in softly, landing on felt walls and settling in your lungs like steam. You're in Mongolia again. The real Mongolia. Endless blue sky, shy sun, and the warm thrum of life inside a yurt that has clearly been through it all and isn't impressed by much anymore. You sit near the central hearth, fingers curled around a bowl of salted milk tea. It's just you, the fire, and the sense that something old is still happening here. Not museum, old. Not hashtag nostalgia. Real, ongoing, quietly stubborn tradition. Because the yurt never left. Mainstream historical check. In today, over 60% of Mongolians still live in jurs. Not just rural herders, urban families, retirees, even young couples saving up for an apartment. In Ulaanbaatar, the capital, there's an entire ring of jur districts. Neighborhoods of felt and wood, smoke rising through the frost like incense. Some of these yurts now have satellite dishes, electric rice cookers, even flat-screen TVs mounted beside the family altar. But the layout remains: fire at the center, entrance to the south, honored space at the back. The bones never changed. And here's your last quirky tidbit. There are luxury yurts now. You can sleep in one on the edge of the gobi, heated floors beneath your rug, champagne chilling near your wood stove. Mongol aristocrats would be scandalized and probably impressed. The yurt, it turns out, can party. But most yurts remain what they've always been: practical, adaptable, weirdly elegant. They go up in hours, they come down in less. They breathe, they flex, they know their place in the wind, and they make a kind of peace with impermanence that few buildings ever achieve. Historians still argue whether the yurt's endurance is due to culture, climate, or pure utility. But when something survives this long, across empires and ideologies, you stop questioning and just sit quietly in it. Let it hold you. You walk the edge of a jur camp now. A child waves from the doorway of a newly pitched yurt, the felt still smelling of lanolin and fresh sun. A grandmother peeks out behind her, nods once, then returns to her kettle. Horses chew dry grass near the fence. Dogs nap in the dust. Nothing announces itself here. No signage, no plaques. Just life, uninterrupted. The yurt endures because it was never about show. It was never about dominance. It was always a soft answer to a hard environment, an invitation to warmth in a world of cold. A reminder that shelter is not a fortress. It's a conversation with wind, with fire, with each other. You step back inside your own jur, close the door flap, and lie down. The smoke hole above you frames the early light. The fire is low now, just embers. But it's enough. It always has been. And as your eyes begin to close, you think, this structure has traveled centuries. Crossed continents, carried emperors, housed families, sparked design revolutions, and stood quietly through every storm. The yurt still stands, because the circle always holds. Her word count 1079 high, wind down 300 words. Let's slow things down now. Let the fire crackle a little softer. Feel the circle around you, the warmth of the felt, the hush of the wind. Everything is round here. Everything bends. Even time. Take a long breath in. Hold it. Let it out slowly, like smoke curling through the roof ring. You're still lying in that yurt. The stars have shifted. The sky above is deeper, darker, quieter. Maybe you hear a dog in the distance. Maybe the kettle's about to boil again. But for now, it's still. The world is spinning gently outside your round walls, but inside, you're wrapped in woolen memory. There's no rush, no corners, nothing to bump into. The fire glows low, the walls breathe, and you're part of it now. Not just a visitor, a sleeper in a long story. The Mongols had a saying: if you must live, live in a roundhouse. If you must die, die beneath the stars. You've done both, in a way. Lived a little history. Dreamed under its dome. So rest now. Let the circle hold you. Let the past tuck itself around you like a blanket. No need to move. The yurt isn't going anywhere, and neither are you.